Thanks so much for listening today. This topic is one that most of us can relate to: overwhelm, overcommitment, and stress. As a busy person, as a mom, how do we push that reset button when we feel like life is just too much and we need some peace? Well, I can't tell you how often I used to feel this way. In fact, I'll admit I still do. We all do. It's very normal. It's how we react and how we recognize this tension and how we actually do something about it. You are going to love my guest today. Her name is Hunter Clarke-Fields, and she is the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. So Hunter is going to give us ways that we can bring more calm into our daily lives. And we all need that in every way. We need a whole lot more of it. Before we get started, I want to thank you for listening each week. And if you haven't done so already, would you hit the subscribe button on your podcast player? That way you can have each weekly episode ready to play. And also sharing these podcasts with friends, it means a whole lot to me, as my goal is to help more people with topics just like this that matter and help us live more fulfilling and healthier lives. Okay, let's get on to the interview now with Hunter Clarke-Fields. Hunter, one of my pillars of this podcast and my website is mindset, health, family, mindset. And I think it's a really hard thing as a parent to get our mindset right. I mean, as an individual, as a working mom, that can be difficult. But let's talk about how you apply your mindset to parenting and why that's so important.
Well, when I think of mindset, I think of mindfulness, and mindfulness is, this attitude of kindness and curiosity and really being present, right? Bringing this attitude of kindness and curiosity to the present moment. It helps every single thing we do, because in my work, the more I'm present with, right here, right now, I'm more focused, I'm clearer, I get things done faster. I'm not distracted by all the rumination and things like that. And then with my family, that mindset of kindness and curiosity, it's so helpful, because as parents, we're often on autopilot. We're labeling, we're taking mental shortcuts with our kids. We're not really being present. And so we're saying, you're the athletic one, you're the smart one, right? And we don't really give our kids room to be who they are and accept who they are. And if we can bring the mindset of curiosity and non-judgment into this moment, we can then say instead, who are you? We can be accepting of who they are. Instead of trying to make them into something, we can say, who are you right now? How can I be curious about you? Can I be interested in you? And I really think that loving somebody, if you think back to when you just really fell in love with somebody, it's like you're just so interested in them, right? You give them so much attention. And if we can be attentive, if we can really be present, and we can really be curious and interested in our kids, that means we're accepting them for who they are. We're not saying you have to be X, Y, or Z. We're saying, who are you? So we're accepting them. And that feeling of love and acceptance, if my kids can have that in their bodies and hearts and minds as they move forward into adulthood, they can do anything. And I know that if they can accept themselves for who they are, and then that starts with me loving and accepting them for who they are.
Absolutely. One thing I talk about a lot and I think about a lot is being present, but I feel like there is always something else in my mind when I'm trying to be present. So you sit down with your child, you're trying to have a conversation, and then you just drift off into this, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? I'm listening. Yep. Oh, yes, that sounds, and then yet I'm still thinking about dinner. And coming back around to that, how do you learn to be more present? And is that what you consider being more mindful?
Yes, absolutely. And it is a muscle that you can develop. What
you can develop that. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. What you
because I kind of felt like I was a hopeless cause.
No. Everybody's like that. Everybody's minds are like crazy pants, but we can start to become more of a master of our minds. And by that, I don't mean that we stop our thoughts, but that we can start to direct our attention in more purposeful ways. So our minds and our attention it's like a puppy, right? And that puppy is like an untrained puppy, and it's over here and it's over here and it's up there. And it's like, where are we going? And you're trying to walk this puppy along and say, here, we're going this way. And it's just the untrained mind. It's sometimes they call it the monkey mind. It's just all over the place. And that's totally, totally normal. And then what happens is with time and practice, another metaphor I like is kind of the idea of training a horse. Like a horse, if you're trying to train a green horse, they'll wander all over the place, and you just gently bring them back to the path. You bring them back to the path. You bring them back to the path, right? And eventually they start to go along the path. And it's the same with our minds, where the practice of mindfulness, at first we sit and we see how crazy and chaotic our minds are, and that's totally normal. And then after a while, we sit and we still see like, oh, my mind is wandering, and we bring it back. And as we start to bring our attention back, that's like that moment in the gym where you're like doing a rep, right? And you're building the muscle of attention. And then it does start to get stronger so that you can hold your attention in the present moment for longer and longer. It's not like, so at this point, I've been practicing mindfulness meditation for like 17 years. And so I still have, my mind thinks, right? The mind thinks just as the ears hear and the eyes see, but I can bring my attention back very quickly and easily to the present moment when I choose to. And what happens at first with the untrained mind, the mind thinks and we're lost for 15 minutes. But over time, we just bring it back, and we can start to be able to hold our attention where we want to hold our attention for longer. And it is absolutely, we have neuroplasticity. It's absolutely something that you can grow. And it's interesting, the studies of the MRI studies, there's actual physical changes that happen in the brain. It's really fascinating.
So obviously we can apply this to our work life, to our family. There are a lot of different ways, even at work, you can say, I'm in a meeting and my mind wanders here and I'm trying so hard to pay attention. My mind wanders here. So these are all concepts we can apply to any part of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. The thing about training the mind is like every single thing in our lives is filtered through our minds. Everything, right? We take in through our five senses, and everything is filtered through the mind. And over time, we have habits and things, and the kind of lens gets dirty. And what mindfulness does, it helps us to kind of clean the lens. We have a muscle, we are able to direct our attention with more clarity and more purpose in the way we want to, rather than kind of I kind of think of it as like, John Kabat-Zinn has a great quote about this. You can't stop the waves, right? Like life is going to happen. The mind's going to wander, emotions happen, but you can learn to surf. So before mindfulness, you're kind of like, at least for me, I was kind of scattered by the winds of my emotions and my thoughts, and I would get pushed and pulled all over the place. And with a mindfulness practice, like I'm more steady, like I'm like a mountain when I would like to be, I can be very grounded. It really grounds you to be able to choose to be able to be present when you want to be.
Well, I love how you apply mindfulness to parenting, and it's good for all of us in every way. But I have always thought, and one of the reasons I left my career of 28 years was I wanted to be a better parent. And I simply couldn't do that getting up in the middle of the night to be a morning show anchor. So when the stakes are high, which I think of our family and our kids as when the stakes are the highest, we want to be good for them. We want to do right by them. And this applies to that. Like, if I don't do it for me, I want to do it for them, and I want to teach them these things. So in a lot of what I'm hearing you say, we're modeling this to them. We're showing them, I'm going to do this. Therefore, you're learning this, and it's going to help you throughout your life.
Exactly. I mean, when we transform and heal things in ourselves, we can start to transmit that healing, and vice versa. What we don't transform, we transmit. Right. And so that's when that idea of generational patterns, like in my family, when there's a wicked temper, when my daughter was 2, I was like, it came forth, and I was like, frustrated and I was yelling at her and I could see I was scaring at her and it broke my heart. And that was for me when the stakes were super high. Like this was exactly what I didn't want to do because this was my father's temper. And I could see that this was a pattern, right? That he had not been able to heal this thing in him. And so he transmitted it to me. And the way he transmitted it to me was that I learned as a little kid, if I had big upset feelings, that I would be met with an explosive temper from my father. And it was not okay to have upset feelings. So then when my daughter was 2, she had her upset feelings, it felt unacceptable to me in my bones, right? Because that was conditioned in me. That was a generational pattern. And then my temper came out and I could just see, oh my God, I'm doing the same exact thing. And it's not because of a choice, it's because of suffering, right? Like my dad had this suffering from his father and mother, and who knows how far down the line, right? And if I didn't transform it, I was going to transmit it to her. So my best chance to stop this was to look at myself, was to dive deeper into these practices of mindfulness, to steady my heart, my mind, and my nervous system so that I didn't give her all my baggage. So I didn't hurt our relationship in that way. And that's the thing I'm most proud of in my life is that, I mean, I still yell sometimes, like I'm definitely, there's a temper in there, but not in the way I know it could have been.
How do you think people can become more aware of these things? Like for some people, they might yell and then not realize they feel yucky about it, but they might not realize, wait a minute, I'm doing that because I feel this way and it's generational. And like, how do you suggest we become more aware first? And then beyond that, learn mindfulness. I know you talk about that in your book and I love that, but let's start with just becoming aware of what triggers us.
Yeah, I mean, this is challenging work. So we have questions like this. We do this in mindful parenting, right? Because I want people to be able to walk through these stages. But it can be something that you do with a therapist. It can be, you could pick up Raising Good Humans and answer those questions there in your journal, right? Like, but it's about starting to look back and say, how was I parented? How did my parents respond to me when this happened? When did I feel safe? Or were there any times I didn't feel safe? And there's a whole series of questions in there that are very much inspired by another great resource, which is Parenting from the Inside Out by Dan Siegel and Mary Hartzell. And that idea of starting to say, how is my past coming forward into the future? Because we aren't just blank slates. We kind of have this idea that we can just choose how we want to be, but we are a whole bunch of, there are all these causes and conditions within us that we didn't choose, but they're there. And these are the cards we dealt. So we might as well know what we're dealing with, right? And understand ourselves better.
Yeah. What would you offer to people if they want to start making change right away? Like, I know I'm not the best I can be. What would you offer to them in your practice of mindfulness as a parent or just as a woman, a working mom, parent of any kind? What would you offer they start with?
People start with different things. And I always encourage people to have a mindfulness practice. But I also think an incredibly powerful practice is a practice of starting to offer ourselves compassion and loving kindness. So the reason why I offer this is because we want to grow and change. We want to do things. And yet when we do those grow and change, right? Any growth is outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's the definition of growth.
It takes work.
And so we're going to make mistakes. We're going to be human. And when we're harsh on ourselves, when we're mean to ourselves inside, then we're not going to want to go out of that comfort zone again, right? Because you got met with this harsh, mean voice inside. So if we can be kinder to ourselves, it can be a foundation for a lot of meaningful change. So if we can say to ourselves, like put a hand on our heart and say, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease, or just may I be peaceful. May I be happy. If we can start to wish ourselves some kindness, start to wish ourselves peace, wish ourselves happiness, and try to offer ourselves some kind words, some compassion when we are inevitably human and mess up. And we focus on that for, 2 weeks, for a month, every day we say to ourselves, may I be peaceful, may I be happy, may I be safe. That can be really transformative as far as giving us the groundedness and the heartfulness to be able to take other steps.
One thing I know you talk about in your podcast and your website is learning to meditate. I think that's a really challenging thing for people who have never done that. It's uncomfortable. It's like, I don't have the time for this. Just the thought of it can be overwhelming. Can you give just a brief example of what that might mean that doesn't have to be overwhelming?
It doesn't have to be a lot. It is true that it is like, we don't want to sit in silence with ourselves. Like it's kind of goes against our evolutionary training, right? To always be thinking about the future and survival and all of those things. In fact, they did some study at some university where they put people in a room for 15 minutes by themselves with nothing to do, or they could sit by themselves with nothing to do, or they could like give themselves mild electric shocks. And like 80% of people gave themselves mild electric shocks.
They didn't want to be alone with themselves. Or oh, that's really sad.
I know. Is that sad? Okay. But it's not so scary once you just kind of dive in. It does feel a little like diving in, but you just have to get in the water. And I recommend people start with a guided meditation. And it doesn't have to be hard. So, I mean, even we can do like a 30-second meditation here and just like see how it feels. Can we try it?
Okay.
Okay.
Let's
all right.
do it.
So just wherever you are, sit comfortably, sit alert, soften or close your eyes, and just feel your breath come in your nose, into your belly. Feel your belly expand and feel your breath come out. And then feel your breath come in, expand your belly, and just feel it come out. And just one more time, just feel your breath come in. And feel your breath come out. And then we can also practice with sounds. You can start to hear sounds, see how they arise and fall and touch. There's many, many ways to practice, but if you've breathed with me for those 3 breaths.
So much of it is breathing and being aware of your breath. Is that right?
Breath is a great anchor for many, many people. And for some people, breath is not that supportive. It can make them a little anxious. So they can use another sensation in the present moment, like sound or touch. But it's just about resting with that sensation. And probably after those 3 breaths, our mind would have wandered, and that's okay. But you can start with a 60 seconds of a meditation. You can start with 5 minutes. And I really recommend people start really, really small and just get comfortable, right? Like, it's like, you don't learn to swim by just jumping into the deep end of the pool, right? You wade in for a little while, you get used to the water, you get comfortable. And that's what I invite people to do, is become comfortable with just sitting and not doing for a minute or 2 and see what that feels like. And once you discover that's not so scary, all the amazing benefits can really be a draw. I really encourage people to give themselves some like good positive motivation. If I do it for 6 days this week, I'll give myself a sign up for a massage, like, and then after a while, the benefits like better sleep, less anxiety, less depression, greater well-being, less reactivity, greater clarity, all those start to feed your practice on its own.
Well, all of those things sound amazing. Like, if that's all it takes, how long, what do you think is a good amount of time?
And 0 side effects and free.
0 side effects. Yeah. I mean, you'll still get all those other things done if you just take, as a matter of fact, you'll probably be more effective in the time that you are present and trying to get things done when you've spent some time meditating.
It's true. You do end up having more time in your life. But you asked me something just
how much time do you think it really takes? Like, I'm a busy mom with 3 kids and I teach and I work and I'm like, I can't fit one more thing in. Can I do 5 minutes? Is that going to give me the benefit, or do you need to give it 10, 20 minutes to really be effective?
That's a really good question. And scientists are trying to figure that out right now. And so it's still a little bit up in the air question. So I would say establish a habit with 5 minutes, right? And then when you've established a habit, maybe you did a month with 5 minutes, jump to 10 minutes. And then stick at 10 minutes, however long you want. There is some evidence that maybe like 8 minutes is like the optimal dose,
Mm.
right? But it is a dose dependent activity, meaning that the more you practice, the more you feel all those like effects, which is why the Dalai Lama is so happy and chill, right? But there's evidence that you can feel, you can have that calming effect, that grounding effect,
Mhm.
that less reactivity and less anxiety and depression, all of that with, about
Even 5 minutes?
5 or 10 minutes a day. Mhm.
Yeah. Do you think it matters when? Do you think doing it first thing? I mean, for me, if I really want to get something done, I have to schedule it in and before the whole day starts. But can it be any time of day?
No, it can be absolutely be any time of day. It absolutely can be. So if you're the type of person you can take a break at work and do that it's sort of at the same time every day, that's awesome. More power to you. Once my day gets going, I can't.
It's hard.
It's really hard for me to stop it unless I'm like teaching mindfulness, and so I get that boost. But I do it before I do. Well, I splash some water on my face and I pee. That's all I do before I
You go
meditate.
straight in. Yeah. You can't do those things first. Yeah.
I do that. That's all I do before I meditate because then life doesn't get in the way.
Yeah.
Although I do know some people who do it at the end of the day and they really enjoy that. I find I'm more of a glass of wine at dinner kind of person. And I like a little Netflix at the end of the day. I don't have personally have the willpower for the end of the day,
Hmm.
but a lot of people find that really helps too.
I love that. Oh, I'm going to start right away. I feel like there's so many benefits that we overlook. And I know you talk so much about parenting, and I want to encourage people after reading your book and listening to your podcast that this applies to parenting in so many ways. And so I encourage people to get your book, and I'll put that in the show notes. But where can people get more information on you and follow you? Because I know you're really active in several places.
Sure. You can find me at mindfulmamamentor.com. You can find out about mindful parenting there, the Mindful Mama podcast. I did a whole series of free 5-minute guided meditations on the Mindful Mama podcast in 2020. You can find those. And on social media, you can find me at Instagram at Mindful Mama Mentor.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy with your 2 kids and everything you're doing. And I hope that we can do this again. And maybe we'll do some more guided meditations because as uncomfortable as it is at first, I know the benefits. I know they're huge. So thanks so much. Really good to talk to you today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.